Hi, friends. It is time. Last trial day. Let's get to the bottom of this. This is the defendant lobby, all right, but there's no defendant. I've been trying to reach Lana all morning. Where could she be? And where's Emma, for that matter? It almost seems as if something's been happening behind the scenes. Edgeworth. Knowing you, you've already figured it out. Who the owner of the 7777777 ID number is. Well, I have a pretty strong hunch. Looks like I'm not the only one who's figured it out. You know, the only reason this trial didn't reach a verdict yesterday is because there was still room for doubt on this ID record. If that number does belong to whom you suspect, then no doubt will remain. After all, he hasn't been officially charged with anything. True, not yet. In any event, once all doubt has been removed from that list, I can call for a ruling on the defendant. 5 minutes after the trial starts, Lana will be found guilty. But she didn't do it. I figured you'd say as much. That's why I came here, to hear what you have to say. It's the first time he's ever done something like this. Lana's hiding something, and the only way we'll ever know the truth is to draw it out of her. The truth. Everything goes back to the SL9 incident. Don't be stupid. Today's the last day of the trial. We don't have time to reminisce about the past. That depends on you. If she's found guilty, you'll lose your only chance to find out what really happened. I'll think about it. See you in court, Wright. This is it. If I'm ever going to find out what Chief Gant has on her, it's now. Court is now in session for the trial of Miss Lana Skye. The defense is ready, Your Honor. The prosecution is ready, Your Honor. Normally, this is when the prosecution puts forth its opening statement. But before that, the police chief has a proposal to make. Chief Gant, all ready? Morning, folks! How's everyone doing? Hey, Edgy, been back to the pool yet? No, I've been drowning enough as it is in my work. Oh, that's a good one. Don't think I can top that. If you don't mind me asking, Chief, exactly what is this proposal of yours? Lana, that is to say the defendant, has asked me if she could speak directly to the court. She wants to do what? Having heard what she intends to say, I feel she should be granted her request. In the end, it should save everyone a lot of time and trouble. What? What's this all about, defendant? I'd just like to make one simple request, and I'll be finished. Well then, what's your request? Your Honor, I'd like you to put an immediate end to this trial. Huh? I confess to all charges against me. On February 21st of this year, I murdered Detective Bruce Goodman in the underground parking lot of the prosecutor's office. No, Lana! Objection! You can't. Your Honor, the defendant's claim does not change the defense's plea. In that case, Mr. Wright, I no longer require services. But Lana! Your Honor, I hereby forfeit my right to an attorney. The prosecution may lack direct evidence against me, but it has sufficiently proven its case through testimony and circumstantial evidence. I would like you to render your verdict now, if you please. Well, the defendant certainly has a right to self-representation. Her request is legally valid, although it is an unprecedented situation. Indeed, appears there's no further need to continue this trial, even if Mr. Wright may feel otherwise. This can't be happening. It appears the time for the verdict has arrived. This court finds the defendant.
Objection!
One moment, Your Honor. Mr. Edgeworth. The prosecution has not yet proven the defendant guilty beyond reasonable doubt. Any ruling at this stage would certainly be premature. Come now, Worthy. I understand that this is a difficult time for you, but why don't you just be a good little boy and keep your mouth shut, I don't think I care for your tone, Chief Gant. What? Creating another fabrication to cover up your past mistakes? Sorry, but I'm no longer the naive little boy you would have me be. With this sudden confession from the defendant, it's obvious to me some kind of deal was struck behind the scenes. Some kind of deal, Not everyone operates as you do, Worthy. I thought so. Your Honor, the prosecution would like to change its first witness. Oh, to whom? As its first witness, the prosecution would like to call Miss Emma Skye. I request the court hears her testimony. Mr. Edgeworth, I am exercising my right to self-representation. I don't think we need to continue. I don't care what you think, Miss Skye. The exposure of truth sometimes results in tragedy. However, no matter how tragic the truth may be, it would be an even greater tragedy to avert one's eyes from it. Very well, the court shall grant the prosecution's request. That's okay with you, right, Chief Gant? Worthy. You'll live to regret this, mark my words. Miss Emma Skye, please take the stand. Looks like Edgeworth has decided to take the horse by the reins. Now then, witness. Please state your name and occupation. My name is Emma Skye. My occupation? I'm Lana's little sister, and I want to be a scientific investigator. 2 years ago, you encountered the serial killer, Joe Dark, of the Joe Dark killings. Is this correct? Yes. I'm trying my hardest to forget about that, though. I'm sorry, but I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask you to recall those events one more time. Mr. Edgeworth, please remember this trial concerns the murder of Detective Goodman. Is an incident that was resolved 2 years ago really all that relevant? Yes, it most certainly is. Well, okay then. You sure gave in fast. Now, please testify about what happened to you 2 years ago. The trip to yesteryear has finally begun. It's bound to lead to the truth behind this trial. I was waiting in my sister's office that day. A man came running in and took me hostage. Neil Marshall rescued me. But I'll never forget what I saw that instant. The man raised up his knife and stabbed Mr. Marshall in the chest. It's a good thing you weren't harmed. I passed out. I don't remember much. That's understandable. However, please tell me, Mr. Edgeworth, what does this testimony have to do with Detective Goodman's murder? That will soon become apparent, Your Honor. You've got to admire him for his courage, considering he has no evidence. I guess he's leaving it to me, then. Very well, the defense may begin its cross-examination. A man. Yes, Joe Dark. He was a serial killer. Joe Dark was brought in for questioning on the day of that ceremony. We were desperate to get anything from him that would lead to an arrest. When he saw his chance, he fled the room, right? Upon fleeing the room, Dark proceeded to take the elevator. He must have been in a panic because the elevator was going up. Then he ran into Skye in Gant's office. It was going up. There was a lot of noise coming from outside, so I opened up the door to have a look. And that's when I saw him. What was the prosecutor doing there? That day, there were two people present during Dark's questioning. Detective Damon Gant and Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Gant was there too. Neil Marshall had just received the King of Prosecutors Award. Young and dedicated, he went straight to the questioning room after the ceremony. I assume that would also be why he was the first to run after Dark. When Dark grabbed me, I thought I was as good as dead. And that's when Prosecutor Marshall came running in. I don't clearly remember what happened then, but... Can you tell us about that? Mr. Marshall jumped on Dark. Just then, the lights went out. The lights? It was just about the time of the year. There was a terrible storm going on, and lightning struck nearby. So the electricity went out. Wait a minute. If it was pitch dark in that room, you shouldn't have been able to see anything, right? Right, but just then lightning flashed again outside. That sudden flash left an unforgettable image of the scene in my mind. I see. I told the detective about what I saw then. The detective? Yes, Detective Goodman. He was in charge of the case. Detective Bruce Goodman, the victim. Keep going. So you spoke with Detective Goodman about this 2 years ago? Yes, and that's what's so scary about this trial. And you told Detective Goodman about what you saw? Yes, but at the time, the words just wouldn't come out. And that's why I drew a picture. A picture, yes. I think she mentioned that before. Well, Mr. Wright, have you heard enough? Keep going. This picture the witness drew, I believe it has very important meaning. But the list of evidence I was given 2 years ago didn't contain a picture. Witness, would you mind if we added this statement to your testimony? Yes, Your Honor. I drew a picture of that scene once, but it seems to have been lost. And raised up his knife and stabbed Miss Marshall in the chest. Okay.
Objection!
Mr. Edgeworth. This little girl put all her heart into drawing that picture. And yet you still insist on denying its existence? Huh? Hey, I'm not the bad guy. All I'm saying is that as the prosecutor for that case, I wasn't handed such a picture. That may well be, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Behold! This is the evidence list for the SL9 incident. Please turn it over, Your Honor. Turn it over. Turn it... Ah! What is this? Yes, what is that? Hey, that's it! That's the picture I drew! Indeed. Two men appear to be wrestling here. What's the meaning of this? What are you doing with that list? Me? Only the prosecutor in charge should have access to that list. Huh? These lists, they're different from each other. What? It would appear, Mr. Edgeworth, that the evidence list you were handed 2 years ago was incomplete. These two lists fit together to form one. You can see the marks here, where they were torn apart from each other. So you see, Mr. Edgeworth, it's quite obvious what happened. 2 years ago, only half of the evidence in the case ever reached you. What? What? Order, order. Who'd have thought the picture would have been drawn on the back of the list? That was handed to Detective Goodman in the questioning room. Wait a minute. If this list was torn in half, then that means... Your Honor! Are you alright, Mr. Wright? Your eyes are bulging from your head. If the evidence list was torn in half, then there might be more of the drawing on the back of Mr. Edgeworth's list. Yes, it's quite conceivable, Mr. Edgeworth. It's possible. Let's see. Is something wrong? Do you even have to ask? His eyes are bulging now. Sorry, Your Honor. There is something drawn on the back of my list. This is that thing. That's that thing. That thing that was dancing in the evidence room. Apparently, the head of criminal affairs used this for his blueprint. I guess he was out of scrap paper. Very well, witness. Wait, let me take a better look at this, because I think I actually do remember what's going on here, too. Because that's a window shape. Like, you can see the curves. Huh. Will you please testify about this picture you drew 2 years ago? Huh? Oh, yes, sir, Your Honor. What's wrong with Emma? She seemed to be thinking about something when she saw that picture. In other words, she drew the blue badger, but why? This is the picture I drew 2 years ago. The flash of lightning was so bright all I could see were shadows. After that, I must have fainted. This picture shows exactly what I saw that instant. To think a flash of lightning could burn such an image in your mind. Thanks to that, though, she was able to show us exactly what she saw. Well, I don't see any contradictions here. This clearly shows Joe Dark about to murder Prosecutor Neil Marshall. The defense may now begin its cross-examination. Did you draw this picture right after the incident? I think I drew it 2 or 3 days later. At first, I was in such a state of shock that I couldn't do anything. During that time, the detective team was reorganized. Detective Goodman was placed in charge, under the direction of Damon Gant and Lana Skye. 2 or 3 days later, the memory should still be fresh in her mind. Excuse me, witness. But can you please tell us why this picture is painted all black? A flash of lightning, all I can see are shadows. So, at the time, you didn't even know if it was Mr. Marshall who had come to your rescue? No, I couldn't see him clearly. The lightning was so bright, and I was knocked to the floor. You were knocked to the floor? Dark had a tight grip on me, but when Mr. Marshall jumped on him, I was knocked away. I turned around, and that's when the lightning flashed. Poor Emma. I'm just glad she wasn't hurt. What happened after the lightning flashed? You mean you didn't see the actual murder take place? No, I'm sorry. The flash of lightning only drove off the darkness for a split second. Not only that, but the trauma of the situation understandably caused the witness to faint. Do you really need to torture this girl any further? Whoops. What? Hey, I'm not the bad guy here! Anyway, this picture... This is exactly what I saw in that instant. Sorry for asking so many times, but are you sure you drew exactly what you saw? Of course! This is the exact scene! It wasn't influenced in any way from your talks with the detectives? Are you insinuating we somehow manipulated her memory, Mr. Wright? No, of course not. I'd better watch out, or he might find some way to cut my salary. I drew this picture before I heard anything from the detectives, so I don't think anyone's story would have influenced me. Mr. Wright, is there something that's bothering you about this picture? Huh? Oh, well. That's strange. She claims this is exactly the scene that was imprinted on her mind. yet, there's clearly a contradiction here. Is there? Am I missing something? Okay. Because we kept seeing the picture, right? Am I gonna have to be specific about the shapes here? Because that blade doesn't look like a blade. And it's just square. Like it's squared off like this is. Without the tip. Is that what we're going for here? No, it's not. I don't know. I don't know what it's wanting me to do. I'm trying to prove also that this is part of her drawing, not a blueprint. Right? Ah! Okay. Okay. What is the problem then? Sure that's what you saw. Manipulating her memory? No. Anyone's story would have influenced me. Oh, she could see with shadows. She didn't know it was Marshall. Okay, but I already tried presenting the knife. What are we losing here? What's the problem? When... Exactly what I saw in that instant. Oh. Oh. Wait a second. He was stabbed in the back. Not in the chest. She said the chest earlier, right? I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but this picture the witness drew contains a blatant contradiction. What? But I still remember it just like it was yesterday. Mr. Wright, perhaps it would be faster if you simply pointed out this contradiction for us. What part of this picture contradicts the autopsy report? What? Wait, am I proving this with the problem with this now? The tip? Take a look at the knife this man is holding. If you look closely, you can see its tip is broken. In fact, you don't even need to look closely to see that. But, Mr. Wright, look at the evidence. See the murder weapon? Its tip is broken too. If I recall, the tip of the knife was found broken off from the victim's body. It was the conclusive piece of evidence that proved Joe Dark was the murderer. I'm afraid it's not so simple, Emma.
Objection!
Huh? Where could you possibly see a problem? It's obvious, really. The victim suffered a single stab wound to the back. If the victim was only stabbed once, then the murder weapon should not yet be broken. Okay. Again, it's the matter of knowing the right answer, but going to it through the wrong means. This case is just full of that sort of thing. Perhaps the knife was broken beforehand. Sorry, but I'm afraid that's not possible. The tip of the knife was found inside the victim's body. If it was broken beforehand, it couldn't possibly wind up there. That's right, but what does this mean? The tip of the knife was undeniably discovered within the victim's body. The only possible explanation is that the witness's memory is mistaken. And that's why I asked her so many times if she was sure she remembered correctly. I believe you were annoyed at the time, but she was sure she remembered correctly. But there's no other way to explain this inconsistency. Not so fast, Mr. Edgeworth. There is another explanation. Have you forgotten already? About a little something called falsified evidence? You're treading on thin ice, Wright. All I'm saying is that this broken knife might be the piece of evidence that was forged. You can't deny the possibility. No. Order, order, order! Are you saying the investigation really was corrupted? Your Honor, please allow me to once again go over the events that took place the day of the murder. The police department and the prosecutor's office were holding a ceremony that day. After receiving the King of Prosecutors award at the ceremony, Neil Marshall questioned Joe Dark along with Damon Gant. During his questioning, Joe Dark fled the room. Prosecutor Marshall chased after him and was killed by Dark. It is my belief that somewhere in this story, there's a lie. I'm not lying. The man really was holding up the broken knife. If that's true, then there's no other way around it. This could not have been the actual murder weapon. There must have been another broken knife. What are the chances of there being two broken knives? Another broken knife beside Joe Dark's? Could there have been one? Yeah, there is another one. If the witness is this adamant about the accuracy of what she saw, it can't just be explained away by a simple observational error. Mr. Wright? In that instant, Emma really did see a broken knife. I assume, then, that you have some information about this other broken knife. If so, please feel free to enlighten us. The murder weapon was already broken prior to the murder. There's only one way. Take a look at this. Here's the real murder weapon. Do I show the thing itself, or... No, because that's its current form, so I'm gonna show the picture of it. Right? The answer lies in the past. 2 years in the past. Right here inside this picture. This is a picture of the award ceremony. Ah! What is it, Mr. Edgeworth? It's the broken murder weapon. Notice the award Prosecutor Marshall is holding? That's a broken knife. As we earlier concluded, the knife in the picture was not Joe Dark's knife. That being the case, the knife the witness saw was in all likelihood this award. Order, order, order! Neil Marshall was awarded King of Prosecutors that day. As an award, he was given this broken shield and a broken knife. When he chased after Joe Dark, he pulled out this knife. Oh, he pulled out the knife! Being a prosecutor, he did not carry a pistol. This broken knife was the only weapon he had in this dangerous situation. But that can't be. Oh, and why not, Mr. Edgeworth? Because if the King of Prosecutors Award knife was the murder weapon, then the murderer and the victim would be reversed. What do you mean? I mean, this man raising the knife would have been Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Oh. Oh! But the prosecutor was the one who actually died. That's true. What's going on here? It seems Mr. Wright has been a bit too eager to jump to conclusions. Wait! I remember now! I remember everything! A witness? Mr. Edgeworth! What is it? Could you show me your evidence list again, please? His list? The one with that picture scribbled on the back? I knew it. This picture. I'm the one who drew it. What? You drew that? That's right. The list wasn't torn in half at the time I drew this picture. All this time I've been trying so hard to forget. I must have locked this part away deep inside me. Perhaps it would be best if we added this to the witness's testimony. Would you please tell us what you've recalled, Miss Skye? Yes, Your Honor. First the knife mix-up, and now the blue badger? This should be interesting. When I saw that man raise his knife, I panicked and rushed toward both of them. I think I knocked away the man with the knife. And just then there was another flash of lightning, and that's when I saw the blue badger. He wasn't in the room, but I'm sure I saw his shadow. This is certainly most unusual. Objection! Try impossible. The head detective of criminal affairs didn't even design him until this year. That would mean he didn't even exist 2 years ago. Yes, well, the defense may now begin its cross-examination. Stop! Please! Don't pursue this any further. Lana? What is the meaning of this? Please remain seated in the defendant's chair. Yeah, that's what I thought. I think I remember this part. It's all coming back to me. Well, not this part, but I remember what happened. But you can't do this. I've already confessed to the crime. Why can't you just leave it at that? Chief Prosecutor Skye. We've already come this far. It's too late to turn back. Silence! The defense will now begin its cross-examination. Bailiff, Please detain the defendant. It seems we're finally getting to the core of the matter. I know what happened. Now to bring it out. Why would you do something so dangerous? What else could I have done? He was about to stab Mr. Marshall. She seems convinced that Dark was the one holding the knife. But as we've just theorized, Mr. Marshall was the one holding the knife. Well, I didn't know that at the time. When that Dark guy knocked me down, all I could think of was I've got to help Mr. Marshall. What do you mean, you think? It all happened so fast, and I was in shock. I don't remember everything clearly. What I did, it's all kind of a blur. In a matter of just a few seconds, Miss Skye was almost killed, but then she witnessed a murder about to take place. A little disorientation is only natural. I saw the man about to stab the other person, who I thought was Mr. Marshall. I knew I had to stop the man with the knife. What you did was very brave, young girl. So then, what happened next? Are you sure about this? Of course, see? I even drew a picture of him here. But the head detective of criminal affairs thought of this hideous beast. And that was just this year. The Blue Badger didn't exist 2 years ago. This is all quite verifiable. I know it sounds strange. I was surprised too when I saw him at the police department. I had this nagging feeling that I'd seen him before somewhere. Now I finally remember. Oh, brother. Just when you thought that thing had caused enough commotion. Tell us, where in the room did you see him dancing? His shadow. So you mean you didn't actually see his face with its winning smile and all? That's right, but I still remember it. It had 3 creepy horns. This is pointless. That thing couldn't have been possibly existed 2 years ago. The witness must be mistaken. That may well be. But what's important is what caused her to think she saw what she did. Oh, and I suppose you have an explanation. If so, by all means, please tell us what the shadow really was. What was it that Emma saw when that lightning flashed? Who is this Blue Badger really? The Blue Badger hadn't even been dreamed up when Emma drew this picture. Yet she's certain she saw its shadow. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the defense's belief that on that fateful day 2 years ago, there indeed was something that looked similar to the Blue Badger. Something that is now sitting in this very room. Mr. Wright! In this room? Very well, Mr. Wright. What is that witness? What is it that the witness saw in that instant? Please show us this mysterious Blue Badger look-alike. Do you guys know? I haven't been really playing slowly because these have been a little longer. The mysterious Blue Badger was in fact this. But that's... what exactly is that? I believe it's some sort of jar. But Mr. Wright, that doesn't look anything like the Blue Badger. Indeed it doesn't. As it stands now, it's just a plain jar. However, what if we were to change our viewpoint? Our viewpoint? Oh, do I need to make it match? Maybe turn it around a little bit. Turn! There it goes.
Take that! Objection!
Excuse me, that was perfectly fine. Is it really gonna be really particular with me? There we go. Well, is this a miracle or what? No one can possibly deny this jar's resemblance to the blue badger. No. It can't be. Order, order! The defense has proven its claim. The mysterious blue badger witnessed on the day of the crime was actually this. Objection! Although we all enjoy Mr. Wright's dramatic performance, one question remains. What's your point? What do you mean? So the badger thing was actually just a jar. That doesn't change anything. Objection! I'm afraid that's where you're wrong, Mr. Edgeworth. You see, this changes everything. Indeed. Very well. Please tell us. What's different now that we know the witness saw this jar? Is it the location? No. The murder weapon? The murderer? What are we doing here? I mean... We've got this jar here. I don't want to be too early again. Let me take these in turn. Okay, I think I'm on the right track here. At the moment of the murder, the witness saw this jar. Not only that, but she saw it at a very specific angle. Knowing this, where could she have seen this jar? Where? The location of the jar is shown in a picture taken on the day of the crime. It's on the shelf of the office of Damon Gant. But the body was found lying near Lana Sky's desk. The witness testified so herself. Yes, and it is these two facts that reveal what actually transpired. You see, the struggle between Dark and Marshall did not take place in Lana Sky's office. It happened on the other side of the room in Chief Gant's office. Are you implying that the murderer moved the victim's body from Damon Gant's office to Lana Sky's office? Yes. Why would he do that? There's no reason. Exactly. If there wasn't a reason, he wouldn't have gone through the trouble. The only logical conclusion is that there was a reason. Do you know what the reason was, Mr. Wright? I finally figured it out. So this is why Lana tried to stop the trial. It's too late to quit now, though. I'm getting chills. Please recall the witness's testimony. She said she knocked away the man who was holding up the knife. In the next instant, the jar was hit and flew through the air. Now tell me, what could have sent the jar flying? That would have to have been the impact the man made when he was knocked into the wall. Ladies and gentlemen, if I may draw your attention to this picture once more. If the man was knocked in the direction of the shelf the jar was sitting on, what would he have hit? Ah! The suit of armor holding a very sharp and dangerous-looking sword. Yeah, that's what I've been saying. And since the man who was knocked into the armor was carrying a broken knife, he would have had to have been Neil Marshall, wielding the prosecutor's sword. No, Mr. Wright, you can't be thinking. Yes, there is another possibility of what actually transpired in that room. Another possibility? Of course, the perpetrator would have had no idea, but nevertheless... I don't know if I can go through with this. Mr. Wright, what's the matter? If events took place as the defense theorizes, then the outcome is obvious. In that moment, assuming the man Emma Skye knocked away was actually Prosecutor Neil Marshall. Mr. Marshall died because of me? I never imagined her testimony would lead to this. So it was the witness who took the victim's life, and then proved so with her own testimony. This is unprecedented. What? What are you saying? I'm sorry, Miss Skye, but given the circumstances, Joe Dark murdered Prosecutor Marshall. How can you think it was Emma? How dare you try to pin the crime on her? Imagine that coming from you. If you recall, it was you who admitted to forging evidence 2 years ago. The reason you moved Prosecutor Marshall's body was to keep anyone else from finding out about what Emma did, wasn't it? I assure you, Mr. Edgeworth, I have no idea what you're talking about. If you hope to have anyone believe your insane allegations, I'm afraid you're going to have proof. Tell me, do you have any conclusive evidence that proves my sister killed Neil Marshall? Evidence? I'm willing to bet you don't. Yes, it certainly would be difficult to prove this with evidence. If we don't have evidence, then we'll have to rely on testimony. I'm afraid that won't work in this case. Both parties involved in the incident are dead. We certainly can't get dead people to testify. This has all been a wild goose chase from the beginning. Touché, Miss Skye. Of course, that only leaves us with one possibility. You mean there's still another possibility? What do you mean, Mr. Edgeworth? I mean the possibility that the victim has left us a message. For better or for worse, Mr. Marshall did not die instantly. He may have left behind the name of the person who took his life. Somehow. That's impossible. Well, Mr. Wright, this is the only possibility left to you. A message from the deceased. Does such a message exist? I've got to think back to the court record. The real murderer's name that the victim may have left behind is in the evidence. Because this is something I do remember. It's all coming back to me in little bits and pieces as I go through this case. This message from the deceased is already in our possession. Mr. Wright! Will you stop at nothing to prove my sister a murderer? Do not be mistaken, Miss Skye. Our purpose is not to accuse Emma of any crime. There is only one thing we seek. The truth. No matter how painful it may be. I mean, that's true. Now then, Mr. Wright, please show us the piece of evidence that conveys a message from the deceased. We're gonna keep going back to this thing. This is the message left by the deceased. Deceased, not the diseased. This is that blue badger from before, right? Oh, is he going to just speak the killer's name? If that thing could, I'm sure it would. Looks like everyone's forgotten this is just a jar. A message was left here, on the surface of this jar. What do you mean? If you look closely, you can see a faint trail of blood in this jar. It looks like someone wiped the blood away. Yes, but notice, for some reason, the blood on some of the fragments was not wiped away. Yes, there's a line here. Yes, there's a line here, drawn in blood. So what you're saying is these dots were once lines. Prosecutor Marshall did not die instantly. He used the few precious moments left to him to leave behind a message. One that someone apparently wiped away. The blood must have seeped into the jar where the lines changed directions. Precisely so. All we need to do is connect these points. And the victim's message will become apparent. Still don't know what happened to Joe Dark then. I'm still just lingering on that. No. Because if she pushed Marshall into the sword, Joe Dark would still be alive, so... What kind of message did the victim leave for us? Your Honor, I believe these bloodstains will reveal to us the answer. There's only one thing the victim would have written given the circumstances, the murderer's name. Let's play Connect the Dots, shall we? I don't know. Oh, let me get my stylus to do this because it's not responding well to my finger. I am so sorry. It's a defense attorney's duty to prove his client's innocence. That's why all I've been thinking about is saving Lana. After all my efforts, I never thought it would turn out like this. Emma. So this is the final message Prosecutor Marshall left behind. Of all people, she may not have meant it. But in the end, the one who took the victim's life was Emma Skye. Seaworthy, can't say I didn't warn you. Chief Gant, do you understand the implications of what you've done? What are you talking about? 2 years ago, Joe Dark was sentenced to death. He was convicted because of his final murder. I believe you were the prosecutor in the case, were you not? Yes, Worthy. Because of you, an innocent man was sentenced to death. Not only that, but you used forged evidence to ensure his conviction. But Joe Dark really was a serial murderer. That's undeniable. I'm afraid that's not important. Didn't you know? We aren't defenders of justice. What? We're merely keepers of the law. Sentencing a man to death is no light matter. Even if there wasn't any cover-up or evidence forgery, ultimately the responsibility falls on the prosecutor in charge. Despite what anyone may say, this fact cannot be denied. What's going on at the prosecutor's office? They might have sent an innocent man to his death? How can he just stand there like it wasn't his fault? Order! 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 The gavel's pounding fell on deaf ears. Unable to settle the crowd, the judge declared a recess. Where this trial's headed, no one knows. Okay, well... sometimes the truth is hard to swallow. But it looks like we've gotten to the bottom of the SL9 case. But I'm still wondering... what happened? Oh, Dark was unconscious. Right? But what about that picture that they showed earlier with the two men on top of each other? But Phoenix implied that Lana moved the body. I'm surprised we haven't shown Emma's handprint yet, though. Because that was evidence for her pushing Neil Marshall. Because I'm pretty certain that that's his vest. His leather vest. And her handprint would be her, pushing him. So it's weird. It's weird. It seems incomplete. Well, anyway, this is actually shorter than most of the other parts of this particular case, so might as well end it here while it's still short. I guess we'll get to the bottom of things next time. Talk to you guys then.